3 questions. Why is the Torah so big? Now, why is the Torah so big on not having sex before marriage? Number 2, how do people these days keep sex a holy and intimate thing when there is so many misconceptions all around us, online? Do you think that growing up sheltered and having no contact with girls can have a bad impact on someone? And to add to that question, do you think that people that never was with a girl can lead to someone marrying just for sex? All right. Question number 1, why is it so good to not have sex before marriage? How many reasons do you want? 10? A dozen? Do you know that today, in most of the world, sex has become very unpopular? Never mind the advertisements. In real life, people are bored with sex. How long can you keep enjoying the same thing? It's boring. Married couples don't have sex. They're just not interested. That means there aren't going to be any children. That means we're finished. We're going to disappear. Almost every country in Europe is in danger of disappearing because the birth rate is so low. And everybody talking about, oh, you have to have sex. Nobody is having sex. It's boring, it's burdensome, it's distasteful. And even people who are having sex are not having sex. They're doing something, but they don't really want to have sex. We've killed it. It has become so cheap and so meaningless that, okay, you try it a couple of times, enough already. It's boring. The worst part of it is, in order to have sex with a woman, you got to put up with a woman. Nobody wants to do that. So we don't know how to get along. All we know is how to have sex with each other. But it involves each other. So it becomes so messy. Like, leave me alone. I don't want to get tangled up in this stuff. So why is there so much talk about sex, and why this? Because nobody wants to admit that they're not having any. If you take the intimacy out of the sex, it's not interesting. We're never meant to have sex. We're meant to have intimacy. And intimacy is forever. You become bonded and you can't separate. Having sex doesn't bond you. On the contrary, it keeps you separate. But I'll tell you one other thing. What is the reality? Is sex supposed to be in marriage, or doesn't it have to be in marriage? Here's why the question is important. If people who are not married can have sex as if they're married, why can't people who are married have sex with other people as if they're not married? So if a married guy is having sex with another woman, it's like, you low life, you're cheating on your... What? He's just having sex with somebody. Oh, no, no, no. It's got to be only with his wife. Oh, but before it's okay with any. Come on. Does intimacy belong in marriage or doesn't it? You can't make believe. So if you have sex before marriage, are you really never going to have sex with anybody else after you're married? How does that work? So it really doesn't make sense. Before I marry, I can have sex with anybody. Then I get married and I can't have sex with anybody? What is marriage, a punishment?
Maybe you have different morals at different points of your life.
That's confusing, right? The morals change. No. Anyway, a few reasons. Number 2, how do people these days keep sex holy and intimate when there are so many misconceptions? Exactly right. This notion of free love, which started in the 60s, free love means free of intimacy, free of responsibility, free of even knowing each other's name. It's not even sex. It's ridiculous. One other important thing. How long can a guy go without sex? Huh?
Short time on a person.
Short time? Huh?
Forever? Depends on the person.
Yeah, depends on the person.
Sex is not a need. Nobody needs sex.
It's how long you can resist the urge.
It's like how long can you go without chocolate?
Not a day.
Not how long do you want to go without chocolate? How long can you go without chocolate?
Forever.
Yeah, you may never have chocolate and you don't even know what you're missing. See, it's an interesting thing. People say sex is very important. I mean, you can never get enough. If you can never get enough, it means you don't need it. Like Chinese food. You can never get enough because you don't need it. See, anything that is a real need, you can satisfy it. I mean, if you're really hungry and you eat, you're not hungry anymore. But if all you want is Chinese food, when will you have enough? It doesn't satisfy anything, so it just keeps on going. It's a bottomless pit. So if you can never have enough, it means you don't need it. It's just fun. Intimacy, being connected to another human being with all your heart and soul, that is a need. Cannot live alone. So intimacy is a real need. When you have intimacy with your wife, you're content. You filled a need. Having sex doesn't satisfy anything because it's not a real need. It's just an indulgence in pleasure. When do you have enough pleasure? So don't fall for the argument, you went a whole week without sex? That's Hollywood. I'm telling you, married couples go for months without sex. They don't want it. They're tired, they're bored, whatever it is. So the misconceptions are all around us, and we got to know fake news when we see it. If you're growing up sheltered, you never had any contact with girls, can that have a bad effect? Can you then be so desperate to have sex that you'll marry anybody just for the sex? If you never have any contact with girls, you're at a disadvantage. It's an ignorance, and no ignorance is ever good. That has nothing to do with sex. You don't know any women? You don't have a sister, a mother? You gotta have a mother. So nobody really grows up not knowing girls. But if you think of girls only as a sex partner, you'll never get to know girls, because that's not what they are. I think men who don't have sex with girls respect women much more than those who do. Safe to say? Men who don't have sex with girls respect women more.
Can I add a question on this topic? I've heard that people say it's a mitzvah for a father and a mother to have kids, or at least try to, on Friday nights. And how I see it, that would make sense to me if it's a day of rest. So if you can explain why.
Why it's a day of rest?
I'm saying why is it specifically that on Friday
On the
nights?
day of rest.
Very simply, you want to give your kids a head start in everything, including holiness. So you want your relationship to be holy, and on Friday night, even the time, even the day is holy. But intimacy is a mitzvah any time husband and wife are together. It doesn't have to be Friday night. And it doesn't have to be for the sake of having children. Marriage is marriage, even if you know there aren't going to be children. They're two separate things.